As I said in a previous video, it is true that a lack of self-love can create food noise. However, it's definitely not the only reason that we crave food. In today's video, we're going to be learning about the different physiological roots and the systems in the body that drive food cravings, as well as how we experience it in life and in our body, as well as doing our own map of what those cravings are like in our own body so we can start to become more familiar with it. And then we will also address solutions from a lifestyle perspective, as well as solutions from a dietary perspective, so we can really start to get a handle on food cravings and stop feeling so out of control. And if this is your first time here, welcome. My name is Sarah. I'm a registered dietitian and artist, and I've created an activity book that will help you learn about food cravings and how to master food cravings. Today we're going to be working through pages 15 and 16. If you haven't yet purchased your copy, go ahead and check the box down below. There'll be a link that will take you to Amazon. You can purchase your copy and then come back and join us as we work on those pages together. All right, let's dive into pages 15 and 16 in the Surfing the Urge activity book. So let's start with elevated endocannabinoids. Endocannabinoids are neurotransmitters that increase the pleasure of eating. As they're increased, we have more desire for food, we're more hungry, and they decrease when we're satisfied. We as people actually have genetic variance in how much pleasure an endocannabinoid is produced in our body. And so that's why for some of us, when we get excited about food cues from our environment, it's hard to say no, or once you get started eating, it's hard to stop. Generally, we'll have a lot of food noise and desire to eat even when we're not hungry. So for me, it's funny, I've said this before, like when I get super excited about eating, it kind of feels like my skin tingles. So I'm just gonna make them like little tingly lines here on the skin, because it's really for me about that like buzzing feeling of like you're sort of thrilled. It's like an exciting, like you want to eat it feeling. And endocannabinoids are found in the central nervous system. So I'm going to put a big E. In fact, I should just make it a crown. Let's just make a crown with the endocannabinoids in there. And they also are found in like our organs and our muscles. So that would be our endocannabinoid system. Okay. Now next, let's talk about Ghrelin. So high Ghrelin and leptin resistance do definitely go hand in hand. We can get this as a result of poor sleep, excess fat on our body, meals that are too high in carbohydrate don't trigger the body that we're satisfied. Leptin resistance and goes along with insulin resistance. So generally speaking, if we have any kind of insulin resistance, perpetual hunger, and we're we have a little more weight on our body than is ideal, we may be experiencing some of this situation. This will manifest really very organically. This is something where we just feel constantly hungry, or the opposite. We don't feel hungry in the morning. We feel not a lot of nausea in the morning, and then hunger comes later in the day. And when it comes later, it sort of spikes. So I'm going to do something silly here, but I want to almost like create, okay, I'm going to change colors. I'm going to do yellow, and I'm going to do something like morning, and we're going to do blue for night, and we're going to do evening. So if you're experiencing this, you might have a low appetite in the morning that really begins to surge later in the day. So this is, and then we'll title this Hunger Surge. Right, that's good. So if you're following along, be thinking about what I'm saying and mapping your own visual representation. Next, we're going to talk about insulin resistance. And as you can see, what happens is we have insulin resistance, we eat, we get this sugar stays in the blood. When we have a lot of insulin resistance, we have a lot of excess glucagon production, which sort of continues to drive our sugars being up, right? And we get these high blood sugars, and that sugar ends up converting to fat in our body because it doesn't get metabolized and used. So this definitely ends up feeling like chronic feelings of hunger, always starving, headaches, low energy, tired, thirsty a lot, very thirsty, and I would say hangry. This is where you're hangry. If you're a hangry person, this is it. Because what happens is your blood sugar drops up and down. And so I'm going to do another one here. I'm going to create like a wave of high and low blood sugars. We're just getting creative here so we can start to explore what this feels like and remember, right? So I tend to call this the blood sugar roller coaster. This is my own terminology because it starts to feel like that. Once you get on it, it's hard to get off. You have to keep eating carbs to try and level up your energy and your mood, because when it drops, that's when we're hangry. And we don't like to be hangry. And the more we experience those drops throughout the day, the more inflammation we have, the more moody we are. Blood glucose instability is associated with higher rates of depression. So when we experience this, we don't feel good. And because I did mention like increased thirst, let's just, I'm not the best artist, but we're gonna go ahead, just make a little glass of water here. And that one also commonly is associated with a little bit of brain fog. So as our sugars, so this is important, as your sugars go up, you get brain fog. Right? You also get hot and sweaty. And so let's just kind of make a couple clouds. Brain fog feels pretty deep. Sometimes it's hard to get out of. You can label it. All right, we're doing good. Okay, so next on our list is mood and energy regulation. So this often goes with all the other things we've talked about, yet it also is related to the body's need to make certain neurotransmitters, such as serotonin and dopamine. And so with this, we will definitely be craving those like really exciting high octane foods. Think sugar, starchy carbs, salty, starchy items, pizza, burgers and fries, like any of that kind of stuff. This does tend to be somewhat related to this like poor appetite curve, where we have like a low appetite in the morning and then it rises as the day goes on because the body's like, I'm not getting what I need and I want high carb foods to give me some dopamine and some serotonin. So we're going to dopamine and serotonin, dopamine and serotonin, and dopamine and serotonin. And these are like these little craving urges that come. It's like the body saying, hey, I need some serotonin. Go get something for me, right? And then we experience this hunger. If you are struggling with anxiety and depression or have a high intake of processed foods, you're not getting enough protein in your diet because protein is the backbone for neurotransmitters, this definitely could be part of your story. So we definitely are going to recommend here to some dietary adjustments. And then lastly, let's talk about something that's not really on here because it's just sort of this background thing that occurs, but that is stress and elevated cortisol. So with stress, we get elevated cortisol and adrenaline. This shifts our body into what we call fight or flight. When we end up craving food, it's generally in a way to calm the body down and put the body into a rest and digest state. And with that being said, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to draw a neck onto this little character. And I'm highlighting this only to remind us that swallowing is a really pivotal act for the body on a neurological level. So swallowing triggers the nervous system to go from fight or flight into rest or digest. So if you constantly have that sort of like hand to mouth sort of craving, and you like to chug water or drink a lot, I would be looking into how stressed you are, because a lot of times we will use just the act of swallowing as a method to de-stress. Okay, so this was a fun little activity where we identified some of those root causes and then how we experience it in the body. So let's talk about a few solutions. All right, so we did our body map. We looked at different challenges and the root causes that we're experiencing on a physiological level. We did our own body map so we could start to identify what cravings, what root causes we think might be contributing for us. So let's talk about some potential solutions, because really that's what it boils down to, okay? So if you, on your map, have identified, and you might want to write these things down, could be helpful. If you've identified elevated endocannabinoids, what I would say is some solutions are, first and foremost, understand that you're going to get that sense of excitement around food. Like if you can experience the rush experience the wave of excitement and desire, and yet pause, breathe, give yourself a little space from it to the point where you're like, whew, that's what that is. Now I have a choice. You can consciously choose. So giving yourself a little space can be extremely powerful. The other thing that's really helpful is to not keep highly palatable or desirable foods in the house. If I go buy a package of Oreo cookies, the likeliness that I'm going to eat them more frequently and eat larger amounts of them is going to go up, right? So really starting to decide what you want to keep in the house and how much you want to keep in the house. And not to say you could never have Oreo cookies, but you just decide how much you keep around, basically. I think that makes sense. A couple other simple strategies would be to buy pre-portioned items, keep them in the house, and this is, I think, probably my favorite one, make a special date to go get your most favorite dessert of all time. Like, don't be like, oh, I really want a chocolate milkshake. Nah, I shouldn't. Let me just go eat some, crappy cookies from, the whatever kind of things. Eat the thing that you absolutely love in a healthy portion, but make it really special. Like, I'm going out, this is going to be super fun, dress cute. Just make it worth your time and effort, and feel the sense of satisfaction. Because so often when we have this, we tend to suppress the desire. I shouldn't eat this, I don't want it, and then we sort of cave in some other way, and it creates this really funny cycle. So I think that should be clear, and we'll talk more about all these things in future visits or future videos as we go through this whole workbook or this whole activity book. So next on the list is high Ghrelin and leptin. So the first solution is to check your sleep. If you're not getting good quality sleep, that is going to be at the root of driving things out of control. So definitely focus on improved sleep. Eat on a schedule. If you eat on a schedule, it really does help with Ghrelin hormone stability, so it doesn't end up peaking like this and getting really high, and then it's just even though we feel food in our tummy, we're still perpetually hungry because of that elevated Ghrelin. And then I also would recommend, if you're having that perpetual feeling of hunger and you're having a lot of cravings even though you have eaten, I would recommend looking into smart snacks. Things you can eat, because we do want you to eat if you're feeling overly hungry. We don't want you starving and under eating. That is definitely not the way to calm down the Ghrelin hormone, and it's not at all gonna work on a physiological level for you. So we want you to eat, but just be mindful of smart snacks. So that would be snacks that are high in fiber and high in protein. So one example I like to give my clients is to make something like Greek yogurt with ranch dressing, because it would be high protein, and then dip some veggies in that. So veggies in a high protein ranch dip or something. And then lastly, I would say macro balanced meals. So those are meals similar to that snack idea that are going to be high in protein and high in fiber. So if you're eating any kind of starchy carbs, wanting to pair that with protein and some high fiber carbs to slow the rate of that glucose digestion and absorption down. And moving on into insulin resistance and elevated blood sugars. If you have prediabetes, insulin resistance, or diabetes, anything in that arena that's been diagnosed, you definitely want to work on macro balanced meals, eating on a schedule, eating within 2 hours of waking, and then every 2 to 4 hours, depending on the size of the meal. And that's really going to prevent some of that glucagon from continuing to deliver the sugar to your system. So really sort of regulating the hormones in the background by eating on a schedule that is higher protein, lower carb, macro balance, something in that arena. Mood and energy regulation. I think this is one of the most interesting topics, but one very good strategy for you would be to focus on eating more whole foods, getting away from processed foods, making sure you're getting the right amount of nutrients in your body. So all the protein to help support neurotransmitters, all the different cofactors, so vitamins and minerals that your body needs to produce those neurotransmitters, working on exercising to boost serotonin naturally versus relying on food. And then lastly, I would say eating meals that are macro balanced definitely falls into this category, because what it does is it prevents us from getting on this blood sugar roller coaster. And on that blood sugar roller coaster, we're going to experience all sort of anxiety while our blood sugar is going up. We're going to be all manic, hyped out, can't focus, and then as soon as our blood sugar is tanking, we're going to be lethargic and depressed and not feel well. And then in regards to stress eating and cortisol, definitely I would lean into swallowing as a way to reduce stress hormone in the body. It's very effective. It's called vagal stimulation. So you just drink a glass of water, drink some tea, something without calories and sugar. So the idea is we're just engaging the active swallow. We also want to combine breath and body movement, and that's really easy. So we would just do something like inhaling, exhaling, inhaling, exhaling. Anything that combines breath and body movement. So it could be simple like what we just did. There's Qigong, there's Tai Chi, there's yoga, there's like a ton of different strategies that can be extremely effective for reducing stress hormone in the body. Meditation, and then going along lines with the vagal stimulation, singing and laughing work really well. And so cranking up your favorite music, putting on a funny show. There's even like laughter yoga and all sorts of fun things you can do to stimulate the vagus nerve in a very easy way. So that's it for solutions. Of course, if you want to read more about food cravings, you can definitely look at the activity book. And we are going to take a quick peek into your macronutrients, meaning your protein, carbohydrates, and fat, so you can understand how to begin to eat macro-balanced meals. And there are some sample meal plans in the activity book for you to color. Let's go ahead and take a look at protein. So we have three main macronutrients: protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Protein is absolutely essential to our body so we can get all the essential amino acids that support the different functions, such as creating hormones and neurotransmitters, as well as building muscle, obviously. In regards to protein, there are animal and plant-based protein sources. All protein sources really are necessary to a degree in order for us to get all essential amino acids. We do need a variety of different foods. Now, in regards to metabolic health, protein is the macronutrient that can help stabilize our blood sugar as well as calm down hunger hormones. It's been shown through research that protein can reduce the Ghrelin hormone, similarly to the macronutrient fat. So if we were to eat a meal that had just carbohydrates, we are going to get a less satisfied feeling in the body and on a hormonal level. So be sure to get some protein. In regards to carbohydrates, There are different types of carbohydrates, maybe you've heard of. Basically, what that means is different carbohydrates have different amounts of simple sugars, fiber, and starch. And so, in order to understand the complexity of carbohydrates, we break them down into subcategories. You maybe have heard of things like pasta and bread, or even carrots and fruit not being good for you because they cause your blood sugar to go up. And although it is true that bread and pasta and fruit can cause your blood sugar to go up higher than if you were to eat something like this purple cauliflower or even some carrots, the reality is there are health benefits that we gain from carbohydrates. And as we're talking about macronutrients, one thing that's very important to understand here is that in regards to carbohydrates, the most important thing to remember is that if we are able to eat them in a balanced way with our other macronutrients, or start by eating our protein and our fats and then our starchy carbs, we can actually reduce the glycemic impact that carbohydrates have on us. Dietary fats have gotten a bit of a bad rap in regards to causing weight gain and elevated cholesterol. The reason that dietary fats have been associated with weight gain is that for every gram of dietary fat, when compared to a gram of carbohydrate or protein, there's double the calories. So yeah, are they higher in calories? Yes. But do they specifically cause weight gain? No. In fact, there are a lot of health benefits that we gain from eating dietary fat, such as getting essential fatty acids that our body needs and different vitamins and minerals. In regards to food noise and cravings, the addition of dietary fat to your meals can really calm down the food noise and the cravings, because similarly to protein, we know that dietary fat speaks to the body on a hormonal level, telling the body we are satisfied. And so really it's just a balance of all of these macronutrients and figuring out how to pair them and combine them at each meal and each snack in order to stabilize your blood sugar, get your needs met, and feel satisfied by the meal. And often that just takes a little bit of experimentation. If you've worked on lifestyle habits such as body movement, de-stressing, getting good quality sleep, macro-balanced meals, and you're not finding any improvement or resolution to your food cravings, definitely connect with a medical provider so you can check your lab work or look into some medication or supplement support that your body might need. If you've done lab work and you've addressed the underlying mechanisms or determined that your lab values are just fine and you're still really struggling with food cravings, I would lean into the concept of the addictive nature of food cravings. There's a really phenomenal book called The Dopamine Nation that I would recommend. And not only can you read that book, but you can connect with a healthcare provider that can help you handle the addictive aspects of food. Thanks for joining me, and be sure to subscribe if you want to be notified of future videos.